Rainbow babies from a spiritual perspective. So, since we choose our parents and our families that we want to be a part of, let's say that we come in or we come into that body, that womb or whatever it is, you know what I mean, and we the energy just isn't quite right. Well, then the pregnancy may not be viable. I have read in several of I'm getting the full body goosebumps. I didn't expect that. Oh my goodness. I've read in several of my Dolores Cannon books, like several of them, where there are various reasons for pregnancies not to be viable, and sometimes it's a karmic reason. Okay, sometimes it's a choice, like something you wanted to experience, and I know that sounds really terrible, but sometimes that is, but usually that is not something that is permanent. Okay, but also sometimes it is the DNA isn't right. So there was a particular story that I remember reading about where they tried to do the whole petri dish pregnancy thing because her and her husband couldn't get pregnant, so they used the husband's brother's sperm instead, so still be like that family line, and the pregnancies like failed every single time because that wasn't right. It was like not the right energy for what they needed, so then they used like just a random sperm donor, I think is what it was, and then it was right that time, like it worked that time. So it's sometimes the DNA isn't right, so sometimes you just do need a different dad or whatever, right? So sometimes though the energy comes in, it's like too much or it's just not right, and so the DNA is fine, so it's not always like the genetics, but sometimes like the energy is a little bit off. I myself had a miscarriage, and this particular child came back later as my son. So the energy in that moment in time just wasn't correct. Like something was off, and then he came back later because he still chose me, right? He still chose to come into my family, but it just didn't work out in that moment in time. So yes, sometimes that's what it means from the spiritual aspect of rainbow babies.